we're no strangers to the ravings of feminists. In fact, there's very little that we haven't seen. With the popularity of the Women Against Feminism hashtag, the web is filled to the brim with feminist bullshit. But sometimes there are things said which are exceptionally bad. Words that are so bafflingly dumb, so mind-numbingly stupid, that it simply must be shared. Because this is a level of ignorance that must be seen to be believed. Join the Honey Badgers as we discuss the topic of shit feminists say. And if you have some of these awesomely bad feminist quotes that you'd like us to read on the air, please drop it in the comments section of this video. As always, the show will be available for download at www.honeybadgerbrigade.com.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular, this is Honey Badger Radio, radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Tonight's topic is shit feminists say. And tonight with me is Hannah Wallen and Karen Strawn. Let's dive right in. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent. Excellent.
It's a good topic. We've got a lot of good things going on. Hannah, do you want to read the news, or do you want me to do it?
Oh gosh, no, I don't know which one it was here. Hang on. There we go. Okay.
It's a lot.
FBI faulty forensics lead to nearly 2 decades of potentially innocent people rotting in jail. The FBI recently discovered errors in forensics spanning nearly 2 decades. U.S. officials began this inquiry in 2012 after the Washington Post reported that flawed forensic evidence involving microscopic hair matches might have led to the convictions of hundreds of potentially innocent people. Most defendants were not told of these problems in their cases. The inquiry includes 2,600 convictions and 45 death row cases from the 1980s and 1990s in which the FBI's hair and fiber unit reported a match to a crime scene sample before DNA testing became common. The FBI had reviewed about 160 cases before it stopped, officials said. 3 defendants were executed and 1 died in prison in the time it took for officials to re-examine the 60 death row cases that were possibly tainted by agent misconduct, most of which involved the FBI hair and fiber unit, which has come under scrutiny. This recent restart of the review is finding that there are some errors in forensics in the majority of cases. According to a Justice Department spokesman, officials last August completed reviews and notified a first wave of defendants in 23 cases, including 14 death penalty cases, that FBI examiners exceeded the limits of science when they linked hair to crime scene evidence. The department is notifying defendants about errors in 2 more death penalty cases and 134 non-capital cases over the next month, and will complete evaluations of 98 other cases by early October, including 14 more death penalty cases. Over 2 years, they will have completed 10% of the 2,600 cases in question. I don't see another story. This one.
Oh yeah. There was another story in the, but we should probably discuss this one.
We really need to discuss this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember last week, or maybe it was the week before, when I said one of the reasons that I became against the death penalty is that we can't be sure that we're not sending innocent men to the chair because of misconduct or faulty evidence. This is the reason. This is the thing. I mean, 14 cases that the United States government may have executed or be planning to execute, 14 people that are there because somebody overstretched the bounds of science to claim that something was evidence when it wasn't. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
I think you're going to find that those kinds of things are almost always going to occur in sexually charged cases, cases of rape, murder, cases of sexual assault, cases of gang rape, cases, because those really, really tend to outrage people, and then you have a huge amount of pressure on prosecutors and forensic experts to put somebody away. I mean, I think I read a story, it was sort of one of those top 10 news pieces ages ago, like 3-4 years ago, about the 10 most famous or infamous exonerations in Canada. And out of the 10, 7 of those wrongly convicted people were men convicted of a sex crime. It was either serial rape or it was rape and murder, right? And one of them was sentenced to hang. He was, I think, the last person sentenced to hang in Canada, and over something that happened when he was age 14 that he was later exonerated. And lucky him, he had his death sentence commuted when we outlawed the death penalty shortly after he was sentenced, right? But he still spent, God knows, like decades in prison.
Sentenced for something that happened when he was underage.
When he was 14, sentenced to death.
See, that's insane. That even if I could wrap my mind around the idea that we're sentencing people to death for, knowing that we might be wrong sometime. The idea that we're doing it to kids is insane. It's just absolutely, they're not done growing up. They're not allowed certain privileges because they're not done growing up. They're not trusted to make adult decisions, and yet they're expected to take adult responsibility because their decisions have consequences. That's nuts.
Well, it's nuts too. I mean, like, you look at the lynchings in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the U.S. I mean, how many of those young men were young men?
Young, yeah.
And again, like, I would think the majority of those would have been, not just you raped a white woman, but you whistled at her.
Yeah.
This is the insane thing. How we protect female sexuality to that degree that everybody gets outraged. And I think that the only thing that even holds a candle to the amount of outrage that can be generated by the public and the media and, the kind of things that turn into riots and lynchings and stuff like that these days would be, race, right? And there's a whole bunch of people in there with sticks poking the public, getting them more and more agitated, often not telling them the truth, and they want the huge emotional response from the public and the demands for justice, and then the prosecutors and the forensic experts get caught up in that too.
Yeah, and one of the things that we need to understand about this particular situation is that during the 80s and the 90s, when a lot of these cases were taking place, what happened was they had not yet popularized DNA testing, and they were basically looking and comparing hairs based upon sight. And
yes, they were treating them as if they were fingerprints.
Yeah,
I gotta
and
correct myself. I misspoke on this. It's not just 14 death penalty cases. It's 14.
3 people were killed.
Out of just the ones they've reviewed so far.
Of these people, 3 have already been executed. We don't know if those people were completely innocent, and this has happened since because the review was taking so long, and they were taking far too long to get these things done. In that time, also another person died on death row of these cases. So it's possible that because of this misconduct and because there was not this urgency to complete this review and look over the evidence and look at these errors, there are people who are potentially rotting in jail. In fact, I will go so far as to say that it's very likely that there are people who are rotting in jail for maybe 20 plus years before they're going to be exonerated because of all this crap. And by the end of it, only 10% will have been done in the past 2 years of the 2,600 cases.
Yeah, and out of that 10%, it says here the inquiry includes 2,600 convictions and 45 death row cases. So already 14 out of 45 death row cases have been notified of problems with their. That's a huge. Out of 2,600, there were only 45 death row cases, and already in the first 23 cases that have been notified, out of that first 23, 14 of them were from that small percentage of the cases that were death row.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me, because those would be the crimes that would generate the kind of outrage and the kind of thirst for vengeance that would lead people to falsify evidence, or to, say that they're sure when they're not sure, because they really want someone put away, right? They really want to punish whoever did it, and if they can convince themselves that this is the person who did it, then they're going to sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
That is why our founding fathers in the United States decided that higher standards of proof were necessary to prove more accusations of more heinous crimes, because of the outrage, because the outrage factor would make people want to be more likely to accept proof. They would develop that lynch mob mentality, and in order to combat that, they had to set the standard to shadow of a doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, rather than the preponderance of evidence standard. That's what feminists are trying to get rid of in cases of sex crimes. And it's the area where it's more likely for a false conviction to happen because of the outrage factor.
Yeah, and it's more... Well, I mean, look at the Innocence Project, and, the majority of their exonerations thus far have been men convicted of sex crimes wrongfully, right? And
absolutely.
Those may have been cases, a lot of those may have been cases where a crime was committed, where a rape or whatever was committed, but the wrong man was convicted because we're so desperate to put that monster away, right? We grab the first guy. Like in one of the cases in Canada that was in that news article, there was video evidence of the mentally handicapped young man who was wrongfully put away for a series of something like 10 serial rapes, right? There was video evidence of him being in another town.
Right? Well,
Like,
I have to clarify this this down here from somebody in the chat, apparently. What do you mean by misconduct? From what I've understood, when they said misconduct, they were saying that they were sure when the evidence didn't necessarily point to being 100% sure, and oftentimes it was circumstantial, aside from the hair or the fiber analysis where they had mishandled evidence, or they had only looked at the hairs in comparison and compared them under like a microscope. And that's really what this is about. I mean, what's happening right now is because they found out the level of errors among these cases, these associations, these groups of forensic scientists that actually set the standard are now going back and trying to set higher standards and fix these errors in human error. It's not necessarily that the science is faulty, but usually things happen like there's a mishandling of evidence. Even with DNA testing, if you put your hands all over the evidence, or if the evidence, these things that you're testing are in an area where a lot of people tread constantly, it's going to be more difficult to determine, where this is coming from, where the DNA came from, things like that. There's a lot of ways that evidence can be contaminated. Mm-hmm. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just going on with problems that were very obvious around the time between the 80s and 90s and before that, in the way that people handled evidence.
This is something I think a lot of people don't realize unless they have had to deal with a hearing. is that expert testimony, even though it's fallible, it's often treated like it's not. And if there isn't somebody of equal status to contradict that expert, then it can actually trump the other side's evidence. It can call things into question that are clearly true. You have somebody that's got a receipt proving he was at location A, and the expert says, well, I've got a hair proving he was at location B. Then the jury decides that maybe that receipt was just somebody else using his credit card, and if he doesn't have video footage, he's screwed. And obviously, in some cases, they're not seeing all the evidence. In the most famous case of evidence being kept from the jury that I can think of is the O.J. Simpson trial, but it's as much done the other way around as we saw in that case done with police evidence. And when I just saw about a month ago, I sat in court and listened to arguments in Nicholas Alverdian's case. He's trying to get his retrial. And the prosecutor pretty much objected. Like, all the prosecutor said, the whole case was objection. Until the very end when he made his argument, which was that none of Nick's evidence should count for anything. It didn't matter. His evidence doesn't matter. We got him, it doesn't matter. And that's, that was what the argument was. And if he can keep that evidence out of consideration, essentially, it affects the case. And that's, they do that to defendants. There's a guy in Iowa who was arrested for using medical marijuana for his cancer. And he was growing it himself, if I understand correctly from the news story. It's been a while since I've read this, but he was arrested. His parents were arrested for owning a house where the marijuana was being grown. His wife was arrested for living in the house where the marijuana was. And his son was arrested as an accomplice. And he's on trial for this, and they're wanting to put him in jail. And if he goes to jail, it's pretty much a death sentence because of his cancer. And they're telling him that even though they have a medical marijuana law, since the law doesn't specify his specific ailment, he can't use it as evidence. He can't bring that up as evidence in court. So they were trying to keep him from talking about his side of the story, essentially. And this is what happens. And then you get somebody come in, in a case like the ones we're talking about, where there are these guys on death row.
Yeah.
These are situations where, if they had evidence, or they didn't have a good lawyer, or they were not well able to recall the situation, or anything at all compromised their case, and then they had an expert sit up there and say, yes, that was his hair, he was there. Even if the expert was wrong, even if the expert was lying about being sure or didn't know what he was talking about, once you say expert, the jury just takes that as gold. This guy must know. He knows what he's talking about, so it has to be true.
And when we talk about the FBI crime lab, which this actually has to do with, I think it's the FBI hair and fiber unit, which did a good number. I mean, I think they were saying it was something like the majority of those cases, the analysis went exactly through them. It's really disheartening to think about, because I'm thinking that there's probably a lot of cases that are going through the same lab, and people had no clue that there were serious problems with all of this.
Well, and if you can't trust the FBI, who can you trust, right?
Exactly. They're supposed to be the standard. They're supposed to be doing better than the average police force. And if they're fucking up, what are we supposed to do? And I really want to stress that we're not talking about being anti-science. We're talking about faulty science where people fucked up. Where things were contaminated, or they were using really bad science by, like I said, comparing hairs and fibers incorrectly instead of actually testing them for DNA, things like that, and running the forensic tests that people are really familiar with and that are commonplace today. They didn't do that
process in
20 years ago.
If you want to see the process in operation, take a group of teenagers ghost hunting on a night when it's good and dark outside. And it won't matter whether ghosts are real or not, whether there are ghosts there or not. They will find some. It's once you tell people this is there and you just need to see it. I'm sure of this, and you just need to find it for me, which is kind of what they're doing in this circumstance. You know, we're going to get this guy. We're going to get this guy. We know he did it. We're going to get him. They're going to be more predisposed to see what they think they should see.
Yeah. I have another story. Oh, do you want to say something before you go?
Nope. Go ahead. I was just going to say amen.
Yeah. I have it. It was out there. I forgot to put it in with the regular. Anyway, Stephen A. Smith has been suspended by ESPN until August 6, 2014, because of his comment on ESPN's First Take discussing NFL's 2-game suspension of Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice on charges of assaulting his now wife. Stephen stated, quote, "Let's make sure we don't do anything to provoke wrong action. We got to also make sure that you can do your part whenever you can do to make sure it doesn't happen again," unquote. Sorry, it was a little convoluted. Co-worker Michelle Beatty responded on Twitter shortly after, saying, quote, "I was just forced to watch this morning's First Take. A, I'll never feel clean again. B, I'm not aware that I can provoke my own beating," unquote. Stephen has since profusely apologized, saying that he was not saying women are responsible for their own abuse. He stated, quote, "It was not that I was trying to say what I was trying to say, yet the failure to clearly articulate something different lies squarely on my shoulder," unquote. ESPN is strongly against personalities attacking each other on social media, but it has not made any punishments for Beatty. Ray Rice allegedly hit his fiancée after she attacked him. His now wife admitted she hit him first. Whoopi Goldberg has come under attack for supporting Stephen Smith, sharing that this assault began with Rice's wife is what Smith was referring to. Whoopi firmly states, quote, "If you hit a man, don't be surprised when he hits you back," unquote. And this was written by Crystal Garcia. I want to thank her for that. What do you guys have to say about this?
All I have to say is the only reason Beatty can say that she had no idea that she could provoke her own beating is because she's a woman. Because men understand that they can provoke a beating, right? They understand because when they get up in some other guy's face and they start poking at his chest and maybe pushing him, right? And all of that, they're courting a beating. That's what they're doing, right? The fact that a woman says, "Oh, I didn't understand that I could provoke my own beat." Yeah, you know why? Because you have privilege. You have the privilege of being able to get up in somebody's face, poke them, push them, slap them around a little bit, maybe even nail them one in the testicles, right? And then feel outrage and shock and horror at the fact that maybe he pushes you back or maybe he retaliates physically in some way. Not even a beating, right? You have as a woman the right, under our culture's values, to be appalled and offended when somebody hits you back after you've been deliberately provoking them, right? Like this is what I don't get about women. You want equality? You want men to treat you like one of the guys? Well, you know what? It ain't so hot being a guy a lot of the time. The very that she could be outraged at the very idea that there is such a thing as provocation. Hell, in the frickin' NHL, right? You get 2 minutes for instigating because they understand that if there's a fight, right, and somebody was instigating, maybe he didn't start hitting, right, but he was instigating, right, he gets a penalty too.
Yeah. I think what's going on is, I think the best example of this is, do you remember the case with Solange Knowles and Jay-Z in the elevator? She starts wailing on Jay-Z, and all he can do is just dodge the blows, because he knows very well that if he lays a hand on her and she goes to police, he didn't know that he was on camera. He knows exactly that it's going to be he said, she said. And Beyonce just stands there, dodges the blows, moves out of the way, doesn't help him at all. And all he does is just, gently move her leg out of the way or catch the leg when she's trying to kick him. And that's how guys are supposed to handle these things. They're not allowed to really push the girl away if she's wailing on him. He's got to just lay there and take it, because if he is not recording, it's he said, she said, and she's really good and pissed, she can lie and say that he assaulted her.
Well, the really sad thing is, it doesn't even matter. She doesn't have to lie. If she hits him a whole bunch of times, and he hits her back once, he's still the bad guy. You can't. This is one of the things that I hated having to explain to my son when he was little. Don't get into fights with girls. Ever. Never get into a fight with a girl, because you can't win. If she beats you up, you're a wimp who got beat up by a girl, and if you beat her up, you're the bad guy, even if she started it. So just, if girls are going to have a bad attitude around you, don't hang out with them. And it's not fair. And it's not right, but it's what guys deal with. And it's a rotten thing to have to teach your kid.
Well,
but I wanted to give a quick shout out. Nethanor has a video on this topic. It's his latest video is on this topic. It's called, I think, Challenge Accepted. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, one of the big implications that nobody seems to be able to extrapolate to, none of these women on these frickin' talk shows who get, like when Whoopi was trying, she was just trying to make her point. It's a perfectly logical, perfectly fair point, and the cackling geese on that show, they just piled on her. They would not let her talk. They're shrieking at her. They're yelling. They're raising their voices. They're treating her like she's Ann Coulter, for Christ's sake, right? But the implication, that comes from this, when you say population A, demographic A, is never allowed under any circumstances to do any kind of violence to demographic B, that necessarily gives demographic B carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want, violence-wise, to demographic A. It gives them an exemption. It gives them a right, a de facto right, to
an entitlement.
An entitlement to be as violent with demographic A as they want, right? And never, ever, ever have to suffer the consequences. Sometimes they can turn the consequences on the person that they were abusing, right?
Yeah.
And nobody seems to see this. It's not that we want to give men a license to hit women. It's we don't want women to have a license to hit men.
Yeah.
And there's only one way you can deal with it. You either make it not okay for anybody to hit anybody, and you start arresting a lot of women, right? Or you allow men the right to self-defense. Those are the only two options.
Yeah, and there were those videos where they would do the test where they would have two actors that would just be in a public area, and they'd look like they were having a heated argument, and where they would switch off, like where the woman was being aggressive to the guy and where the guy was being aggressive to the woman, and they checked to see who called the cops. And when it was a man who was being wailed on, and it was very clearly one-sided, there would be these women that would go by and make that sort of gesture, like, yeah, you go, girl.
Oh, yeah.
He must have been asking for it, apparently.
They always assumed that he had done something. They never could grasp the fact that even if he had done something, she still wouldn't have the right to hit him.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that was the ABC, What Would You Do, on 2020, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a couple of them.
Oh, yeah, there have been. But they initially did one where the boyfriend was menacing his girlfriend, right? Yelling at her and kind of grabbing her by the shoulders and, shaking her a little bit, right? And kind of getting into her face, right? And so many people just intervened. They called him a psycho, right? They told him to leave her alone, the whole bit. I'm going to call the cops, right? When they did it with the woman who like, it was a sustained, vicious beating over the course of over an hour on a park bench. And over 100 people walked past, did nothing, including an an off-duty cop.
Yeah, there was another one that ridiculous. I saw. I cannot remember which show it was. But there was one. They were on a city street, and the guy was pretending to menace the girl, and one guy came up and jacked his jaw really good and hard. He didn't even. He just walked right up and slammed him. And that's actually a fairly common response. When somebody sees a man menacing or looking like he's menacing a woman, to the point where there was a news story on Reddit, posted on Reddit a while back, where a woman tried to steal something from a guy, and they were kind of wrestling over it. He was trying to detain her so that he could get the police involved. And two people came up and rescued her from him, so she got away, because they thought he was the bad guy because he was a man.
That is just fucking ridiculous. But
that
hey,
is how society sees the demographic.
Yeah, and I don't understand how these women can sit there and say that we live in a patriarchy when there are men just willing to go up, punch someone in the face for hitting a woman in public, and just moving on like it was nothing.
Yeah, well, and that's one instance during which a guy can get away, or even a woman, either one can get away with committing assault, is if they say they were interfering in a situation like that.
Yeah.
They're not likely to be prosecuted for hitting the person that they've hit. If they can say, well, I was defending a battered woman from her abuser. Oh, well, then it's all right.
Yeah. Well, you guys ready to delve into feminist stupidity?
Oh, my God. Do we have to? I guess that's the title of the show, so we're just getting around it.
Okay, so I'm going to begin with some segments, and then eventually we're going to get to the actual things that were some of the things that have been said or reportedly said by feminists.
Oh my God.
And if you guys in the chat have any specific ones that you want us to read, just let us know. But anyway,
Senior X says it's Harry Potter's birthday.
Oh gosh. Is that a reference to the fact that I wrote Harry Potter erotica? Oh gosh, I hope not. Anyway, senior editor at BuzzFeed creates a campaign of unapologetic sexism. The popularity of the Women Against Feminism hashtag has many feminists less than enthused. With anti-feminists demanding that feminist ideologues address their grievances, it's no wonder that so many of them are grumpy. Luckily, Katie, I'm going to mess up this name, Katie Notopolos has arrived to solve all their woes. Her solution? Unfollow all the men in your Twitter feed so that it becomes an echo chamber of women that always agree with you. Well done, Katie. Thanks to feminist logic, now you only have to deal with women that disagree with you. Because, of course, women never, ever say hateful things online or have opinions of their own. If they do, well, they must be men in disguise. While her article and campaign could be interpreted as a mean-spirited joke or an act of trolling, it should surprise no one that there are people that are dumb enough to comply. in a weird way, this is helpful to many men on social media, because if a follower of yours is enough of a passive-aggressive psycho to participate in this bullshit, then really, they are doing you a favor. Troll or not, Katie Notopoulos is proof that there are misandrists in high places, and that these kinds of idiots truly walk among us.
I think that name should be pronounced with emphasis on the nut.
Oh, God, I can't pronounce that. I think it's Greek.
It's probably Notopoulos. It's not Polychronopoulos.
Oh, okay, not Notopoulos. Okay,
it might be.
I totally butchered it, and if you're listening, Katie, I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sorry for calling you a troll.
Yeah.
but yeah.
Apologies.
No, I don't apologize for that, because it's very obvious, and I actually have a couple of quotes from her among the quotes that I've collected on the different hashtags. And this hashtag is actually, or this particular campaign, if you want to see the craziness, it's the hashtag unfollow a man. And the general idea is that you go and you find a man that has been pissing you off and you just unfollow him. And to some extent, you basically unfollow all the men. As a suggestion, basically she said that what she did was she went and deleted all the men from her Twitter, and that things got so much more peaceful. And I'm like, well, no shit, because you probably pick women that all agree with you.
It's like flounce on steroids.
It's this way to the revolution, ladies. This way to the revolution. We're going to take over the world via Twitter.
By removing our wonderful, superior selves from your presence so that you're so punished by not having us around.
Oh, God. I mean, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, what a stupid thing to do. I mean, okay, I would say, if some dude's bugging you, unfollow him, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do it, right? Like, if you don't like what he says or he makes you feel bad, or just go ahead and do it. That's not like a campaign. That's not a political movement. That's not a revolution. That's not a striking back at the oppressor. There's nothing feminist about that, right? Unfollow people who annoy the fuck out of you, right? Oh my goodness, or don't follow them in the first place. It ain't rocket surgery, ladies. Or even brain science.
You said rockets. Yeah, you said
I
rocket
always say
surgery.
rocket surgery because it's funny and silly.
I have an uncle who's a rocket surgeon.
Oh gosh.
Really, it takes a lot of delicacy, like stitching up the boosters there, right?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, all those poor rockets that are in desperate need of surgery.
Well, it's very hard to be a rocket if your one leg is longer than the other one, because then you get imbalanced and the high kicks are harder, and nobody's going to get that.
That would be bad.
Oh gosh.
The suffering.
Mean Jean says a rocket surgeon is a urologist.
Oh.
I had to read that one.
A urologist.
Yes.
Oh. Oh, guys, by the way, did you know that Women Against Feminism is apparently a male conspiracy? A conspiracy concocted by the patriarchy? I didn't know about this, but I'm glad that Nina Burley has enlightened us about this. But anyway, she did a story, and here it goes. Nina Burley concludes, with the power of her feminist logic, that women against feminism are men or male avatars, which is probably one of the most sexist things that many of us have seen in the past. The irony in this is that this is coming from the group of women claiming to be acting in the best interests of women. What does it say when the first thought that these feminists have is that women cannot draw such conclusions on their own? Nina Burley is not the first feminist to suggest that Women Against Feminism is a hoax made up of men pretending to be women. Jessica Valenti and several others have suggested something similar. Nina Burley had this to say on the topic. Hold on. Scrolling down. Everything, quote, everything about Women Against Feminism suggests that it's a sock puppet for the aggrieved misogynists and pedophiles of the anti-feminist men's rights crowd. The main clue is that almost all the women on the site are nubile and posed in ways that fulfill dirty old men's wildest dreams about pliant young things, unquote. Jessica Valenti tweeted, quote, sort of amazing how many women, in quotations, joined Twitter the other day. Women Against Feminism started. Curious, unquote. It is truly amazing how sexist these well-known feminists are. What they are saying is that this is not merely a response to the problems within feminism, that this is politically motivated by conservative ideals being pushed onto women by their husbands and boyfriends. So if a woman considers the way her actions negatively affect men, these thoughts are not her own. They are the work of the patriarchy using them as a pretty puppet for perverted white men. It's nice to know that the moment the feminist movement comes under legitimate criticism, that their first thought is that it must be some kind of MRA conspiracy, because women can think for themselves, but only in ways feminism approves of. And if not, it's surely the work of the patriarchy. Way to protect women's rights, ladies. We knew you'd find a way to silence dissent somehow.
So, what element exactly do we have to bend to become male avatars?
I don't know.
Does this go back to the whole urologist thing?
I don't know.
I don't know. You know what it is back when I started, before I showed my face, I got tons and tons and tons of accusations that I was a guy. Right? I was a fat, ugly male loser living in his mother's basement who couldn't get laid, and that was that, because no woman in her right mind would have the opinions that I had, right? And so, I mean, of course, they cannot imagine a woman diverting so far from feminist ideology, from the feminist movement, right? That they would just come out and say, I'm against feminism, right? Not I'm blasé about feminism. Oh, those feminists can do what they want. You know, I just don't pay attention. Not, oh, well, feminism seems nice, but I just don't have time, right? No, I'm against feminism, right? They don't listen to any of the shit that we talk about. They don't listen to any of our arguments, right? They just assume that we're guys. And the accusation of pedophilia, that is because, as far as I know, none of those women on that Twitter feed, none of those women posting pictures of themselves were prepubescent children.
No, but they're right, as if every single woman that posted a picture on there is young. I guess I must not have gotten a really good image of the gray hairs on the top of my head.
Yeah, I know, and it's just
posting that under my picture.
They just can't, you know. And then after I came out on video, there were all kinds of rumors going around that I was John the Other sock puppet, and basically he was just telling me what to say and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, you know, I'm hardcore, right? And I have been hardcore. I was hardcore non-feminist, and then I went hardcore anti-feminist because of a whole bunch of stuff, right? The more I learned, the more anti I was, right? My boyfriend, up until a year ago, used to sort of, I consider myself a feminist, you know, and it just used to infuriate me. It infuriated. Like, why would you call yourself that? Right? Oh, yeah, you believe in equality. Oh, well, so do I, and so does the freaking alien overlords that are, you know, operating our freaking systems from orbit. Okay? Everybody believes in that, right? Feminism is something totally different. Feminism has a lot of extras. It has a lot of added shit that you have to buy along with that equality, right? In fact, the equality thing, by the time you've added on all the extras, the equality thing is like completely it's unrecognizable, right? Like, why? Why would you call yourself something like that? Please, please, please stop calling yourself that, right? So this isn't me going by what he thinks. he's way more mainstream and moderate and all of that than me, right? Like, he's very, if maybe we could all just get along, and and he has hopes, and he goes on to like all kinds of forums on Reddit, and he tries to ask them questions and try and find out where they're coming from. And I'm just like, don't even do it, because you won't get anywhere good, right? Because they will not open their mouths without contradicting themselves and probably insulting you in the process, right? Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Just don't even try and reason with them, because they can't be reasoned with.
My husband won't even discuss politics with people. Like, he'll listen to me talk about it, and he'll state some opinions here and there, but he will not get into a political discussion. He won't go on Reddit to talk politics. He doesn't engage in political discussion when people start on Facebook. None of that. He's completely out of the, not out of the loop so much, but out of the arena. Like, he knows what's going on, he knows what his opinions are, he knows, what information he finds important and so on. But the idea that he would get all up in arms and tell me to go online and say things is ludicrous. But, people have made all kinds of odd assumptions about, like, there's actually a set of court papers in which it states that my husband is a lesbian. So, from a friend's divorce, her ex accused her, me, another of our female friends, and my husband of being in a 4-way lesbian relationship. And because, that really doesn't factor into any of the decisions the judge is making, the judge decided that it was not worth addressing and did not let us counter that accusation. So I can't be a man.
Wow.
My husband is a lesbian, and he would not have a relationship with that.
I'm sorry.
So I am in the most uncis relationship ever.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about my relationship, my boyfriend and I have similar views on many of the same things, but he had them, I think, before he met me. He didn't really, push them on me or even discuss them with me until I expressed, this doubt that I'd found, where I once felt that feminism was the best way, the most efficient way to pursuing equal rights, and those seeds of doubt had been planted the more I learned about history and the more digging that I did. I just felt this doubt, and he said, he's very practical about everything. He doesn't really get very political, and he's not really involved with the men's rights movement, but I think that he sides with a lot of the things that we talk about. And to say that he planted the seeds of doubt or that he was behind all this is kind of complete bullshit, because I was the one who brought those things up in the first place. So yeah, to think that this is just, a ploy, that there are men that are pushing these ideas onto women, and that this is what has caused the women against feminism thing to happen, it's completely ridiculous. And they've been around for a while. It's just been recently that they came into the media because BuzzFeed found out that they were a thing. They just sort of like, they're like, oh my gosh, women against feminism is a thing, and then all the media sources just started picking it up. And I could be wrong, I haven't looked at that specifically, but I think it was BuzzFeed or another media source that picked it up and found out about it on Tumblr. And then it started spreading around. But while there are some traditionalists among the women against feminism, they don't make up the entirety of what's going on. It isn't a move, or it isn't politically driven. There are people from all ends of the political spectrum who have seen the problems that exist there in modern feminism, and they're upset. They're legitimately upset, and they're trying to bring these concerns to the general public. And while not all of them are MRAs or support men's rights directly, a lot of female MRAs would sit there and call themselves women against feminism. So there is an MRA presence. but it isn't the majority of the women who have done this. And a lot of these women have taken a neutral perspective, and a lot of people are upset about that, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think they think that they can intimidate these women into silence by using MRA against them as a slur, just the way they thought they could intimidate the men's rights movement into silence by using PUA against us as a slur, and shut up the PUA community by using Elliot Rodger as a slur. You know, these people, they just look for somebody that they have decided represents some aspect of a group and consider that to be the most disapproved element by their standards. And they think that the group is going to agree with them enough to be shamed into silence by that association. I don't think women against feminism are going to fall for that, because frankly, they're women against feminism because they see through feminism's shit.
Yeah. And they really do have a lot of legitimate criticisms. Do I think that every criticism on every sign is a legitimate criticism? No, I think some of them are silly, but also some of the signs that said, I need feminism because, were completely ridiculous and just they didn't even make grammatical sense.
Yes.
So to sit there and criticize it on that alone would be ridiculous. There are some definite, there is a traditionalist presence, there is a religious presence, but they don't make up the entirety of what's taking place here. And to sit there and just completely discount that because of that presence is completely unwise.
Other thing is, they are not saying, I don't need feminism because I can't make everyone else be traditionalist. The things that they're saying that are traditionalist things are, I don't need feminism because feminism won't let me choose my own life path. And if that life path happens to be traditionalism, that's not anybody's business but theirs. If a couple decides that they want to live a traditional lifestyle and they are happy doing that, and they live their lives and they don't bother their neighbors, that is no more wrong than any other couple doing any other thing. And it really says something about our society that we've gotten to a point where it is supposed to be unpopular to tell people what to do with their lives and what to do in their homes and in their bedrooms, unless you're criticizing people who are doing what people have always done.
Well, what I find interesting is that there was just today, I think I commented on an article where so many feminists they said, well, most of these ladies would they're just really confused, and if they just sat down and had a 5-minute conversation with a feminist, then they would understand, right? And it's like, it never occurs to them that maybe we've had hundreds of much longer conversations with feminists, right? Or even thousands. And that's why we feel the way we do, right? Or what was the other one that, it's a way of supplicating yourself to the oppressor, right? So that you can share in the power that's held by the dominant system, right? So basically, we're the whores of the patriarchy, right? Cashing in on our whoreness, right? And all of that says to me is that these people who, on one hand, gender isn't a binary, but they are stuck in a binary, right? Where if you oppose feminism, they can think of no other explanation than that you're in bed with the patriarchy. You're in bed with the oppressors, right? That there are only two choices there. Support feminism or support patriarchy, right? And, as far as I'm concerned, patriarchy does not exist as they imagine it does and did, right, in the first place, right? So, I don't, they are locked into this binary, this dichotomy, they cannot get out of it. You're either for feminism or you're for the patriarchy. You're either you know, you either support feminism or you support the oppressors, right? And like,
They
there's
just
no
need lube. Get out of that binary.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
a lot of lube.
Oh, but I think
I
my
got some
favorite
here
one
with
is... I've got a favorite one, and I'm going to give it to you real quick. Oh, that's not... Yeah, people are going to take that out of context.
Give it to us, Rachel.
Yeah.
Give it to us now.
It's, oh my gosh, don't you know the definition of feminism is the fight for equality? Don't you know that this is what the dictionary says, you guys? Oh my gosh.
That is to give them the
I feel so
dictionary definition of a
now.
gun.
I feel so dumb here. Like I was totally imagining things, and now I'm. Oh man, I'm a feminist.
Yeah, I get that from them, and, you know, turn around and post the dictionary definition of a gun, and the dictionary definition of a knife, and the dictionary definition of a car, dictionary definition of a lawnmower. None of these things have in their definition, you know, being used as weapons against people, but I have seen all of them used as weapons against people. Actually, one of my friend's ex-wife attacked his current wife with a lawnmower. So, you know, obviously that can't really have happened because the dictionary says that it's for cutting grass. And
Or
zombies,
zombies if you're a fan of Peter Jackson movies.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. Actually, I think I saw that movie. I forgot what it was called, but I think I remember. Yes. Oh gosh, I love that. That was the one with the zombie fucking, wasn't it? The zombies.
That was the one where
his had a baby.
That was the one where they were all having dinner, and his mother's ear fell off into her porridge, and she ate it.
Oh, lovely.
No, but actually, yeah, there's like a nurse and a priest that are dead, and they have sex, and then they have like a zombie baby, which just starts attacking everyone. But we're in the silly place now, and we should get back on topic.
It was I just remember being like having morning sickness and watching that final lawnmower scene in the foyer of his house, where there's zombies closing in on all sides, and then he just lifts up the lawnmower and kind of mows. And
yeah,
that's a perfect thing to watch during morning sickness.
I was really not happy with my husband at the time because, yeah, I was like,
this is a pre-Tolkien era Peter Jackson, when he did stuff I liked. Because he had a really wicked, fucked up sense of humor, and I miss that. But yeah, getting back on that, it's feminism is the fight for equality, and Nazism was the fight for a better Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it was sold to the German people. They're like, listen, we're gonna make Germany much better by doing all this great shit and killing Jews.
And
they never told them they were killing Jews.
Was the struggle for workers' rights.
Yeah, they're like, they never told anybody, by the way, we're gonna go kill some Jews.
Well,
I mean, had they been told that was what was gonna happen,
feminism.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we not have elected Hitler.
Russian people that, by the way, since everything is equal and everything is communal, if you're a little bit better at farming than your neighbors and you actually have more cows than them, we're going to send you to the gulag or execute you. Yeah. Right? Even if it results in all your neighbors starving. Right? Because by
the way,
you have 2 cows. You have 2 cows. Go die.
But, they're going to get on us for, and this is why people sit there and call feminists feminazis.
Yes, actually.
But, it's, this isn't the specific reason, but it's usually the ties to cultural Marxism, but that is probably another show in and of itself.
Feminism is Godwin's law in action. There is nothing about feminism that cannot be quickly and cleanly compared to Nazism. The parallels are just too close. And if you don't go that direction, then you can go a different direction and go into literature. I say feminism, sure, feminism's the fight for equality, exactly as Orwell described it in his novel Animal Farm.
Yeah.
And some people are more equal than others.
Yeah. Some of us are more equal than others, and oh gosh. Yeah.
I ended up in a long discussion in the Orange Room hashtag with a couple of feminists that literally would not let that go. It has to be about the dictionary definition. Everything I posted, they did not read and just kept going back to that. Just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And it's like, if I just repeat this enough, you'll accept it. And that's basically all I got from them. Until one of them finally got fed up and blocked me, said she was blocking me, and of course I replied to the tweet about being blocked, and she retweeted and reworded my reply, so I replied to that too. and at which point the person who supposedly had me blocked replied to my tweet. I had fun with that. I ended up with images of that on my Twitter, my Twitter feed because of that. But she followed my feed after blocking me, and then accused me of stalking her for replying when it came up on my screen. You get that little pop-up window, that little instant pop-up window that says you got a tweet, and if you click on it fast enough, you can reply. So it wasn't stalking to block me, repeat me, and follow my feed, but it was stalking to answer her when she was doing it.
Oh, well, yeah. Just like if I hit a guy and he hits me back, then he's abusing me.
Oh my gosh, really are dudes.
But me hitting him is totally okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, yeah, no, it's... Oh, but this just landed in my email inbox from somebody who just found my channel, knows nothing about the MRM, but he started Googling. Okay? My question mostly revolves around the men's rights movement. I have not really gotten a lot of information about this movement. From what I could glean from the internet, I understand it to be a rebuttal of feminist viewpoints and revolves around strengthening core ideals of manhood. Would this be an adequate description? And if so, in your opinion, what are those core ideals of manhood? My version of these ideals include a lot of stoicism and violence, right? Yeah, no. See, because where you read about the MRM, and I'm not going to say your name, but kind writer, where you've been getting your ideas about what the MRM is from Vice, and from Huffington Post, and from all the people who call us patriarchy's whores. Us women against feminism, right? And they call all of the men in the MRM guys who want to take us back to the 1950s, right? And no, none of it's about that. But see, this is just exactly what happens when feminists say stupid, completely false, fucked up, retarded shit in places where they are taken seriously. Is you get people who... It's nice that he emailed me and, wanted to clarify, right? But, that the people are curious, and that's what they find.
Yeah.
They find out that the MRM is about putting women back in the kitchen. The MRM is about taking back male privileges. It's about rolling back women's rights to vote and, own their own bodies and all of these other things and blah, 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 blah. It's about all of those things. And it's about, men being real men and, and all of those things.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. That is by far my favorite one, where they go out of their way... where they go out of their way to say that the MRM is supporting the traditional male gender roles when oftentimes we are I would say a lot of the time we're criticizing the expectation, that sort of traditional male gender role, that there are a variety of different men that all have different ways of doing things that don't all fall under this category. They don't all meet this expectation of manhood.
Well,
and that's okay.
There's nothing more manly than campaigning to help men whose wives beat them, right? There's nothing more manly than, than saying, no, it's really not okay that teacher took advantage of that 15-year-old, that's actually rape. Even if she's hot, there's nothing more manly than that. There's nothing more reinforcing of traditional gender norms than going out of your way to say, adult men can be raped by women half their size, right? Nothing more manly than that, right?
Yeah, there's nothing more manly than going out of your way to say, you know what, it's okay to be gay, and that we welcome gay men in the MRM. We have several. We've got gay people, we've got transgender people, we've got all folks. We've got bisexuals, everybody. Asexuals.
We really are playing with a full deck.
Yeah, we got everybody.
Actually, that's something I gotta speak to.
They don't know.
There's a regular thing of people coming into Reddit's men's rights and stating that they don't see anything going on in there with regard to gay men, or they don't see anything going on in there with regard to transgender men. They'll make a post. It's a self-post usually, so it doesn't have a link to anything. They don't get any karma for it. They just go in there and try to sow the seed of the idea that MRAs ignore everybody who is not a straight white male. As soon as they come in there, you can tell by reading what they've written. For the most part, these are people who have absolutely nothing to do with gay rights or transgender rights or anything like that. They're in there to sow the belief that the movement is anti-gay or anti-transgender, or that they're not represented in the movement.
Oh,
and if you search gay or transgender in that site, and if you search either of those, gay or transgender, you will find post after post of people asking that same question in that same passive-aggressive way. We know you're not representing these groups, and we're going to try to highlight that.
We're not representing their gayness, and we're not representing their transness. We're representing their maleness or their former maleness.
There is discussion in that forum,
but it's not our focus. It's not
related to men.
Like, just because we deal with the problems that men have because they're men, right? Gay men have those problems too, often amplified and exacerbated by being gay, right? Black men have those problems too, often amplified and exacerbated by the fact that they're black. Trans men have all of those same problems, in addition to other ones that they have specific to being trans. Trans women often have the exact same problems of having been raised in a masculine role that they did not feel fit them, especially that a lot of men, cis men, don't feel like that role fits them and they feel constrained by it. Well, imagine being a trans woman and being raised like that. That's got to give you a lot of baggage growing up, right? And we talk about those things. We just don't make a big deal out of the fact that you group over here, you're gay and that's great, lavender on, and and you trans people over here in this glass case on display, right? We're totally representing you too. No, it's these are things that apply across the board. These are problems that apply across the board to all of these people. If we just deal with the issues regarding maleness, then a lot of the problems that these other groups have are going to be alleviated and ameliorated, right? Not all of them, but these specific ones.
It's one of the big differences between the men's rights movement and the feminist movement is, the men's rights movement is pretty much just this conglomeration of people who have realized that in the course of fighting for what they wanted, feminists have actually enacted discriminatory laws and policies, and that's what we're up against. Whereas with feminism, what they seem to have is this conglomeration of people who want to be part of the museum of who's suffering now.
Yeah.
It goes beyond that, though, because what they're doing is they're making their differences or these specific things, like being trans or gay or any of these different things, they go out of their way to make it political, whereas we don't give a shit what your differences are. We're going to protect your rights as a man.
We define ourselves by our unity, and feminists define themselves by their differences.
Yeah.
And their lack of unity. But then
let's move on.
Yeah,
go on.
Is it alright if I read the thing that night?
Oh, go on. Actually, yeah, we're moving into that.
It actually
so go ahead.
Before, but the one that I want to read, this is, I won't read her name, but this is in response to Women Against Feminism, and she said to him, "You do realize that your right to have an opinion on feminism exists because of feminism." So apparently women were never ever opinionated before feminism existed, and of course women didn't have the right to speak out when women started speaking out, and you know,
kind of makes you wonder how that
exactly exists because
yeah,
how the heck did they get this off the ground again?
Oh gee,
but
yeah,
women never got anything done before feminism. Were completely dominated and inept, and you know, I saw a lot of that.
Women were never strong or self-reliant or smart or any of those things until some Victorian white women made some signs.
Yes, and you couldn't have this
they
before
weren't allowed
feminism
to make
hyperbole.
those signs, so it never happened.
Yes, there is no feminism. And if you look at feminism hard enough, will it bend?
Oh my god,
I got told the same thing about my hair. I have the right to have long hair because of feminism, because apparently Lady Godiva never happened.
That's okay. That's debatable.
Doesn't make any
because
sense.
Yeah,
Long hair is historically the norm.
Yeah.
For women.
Yeah, short hair was a weird thing. They thought it was not something that you should do. They usually only cut your hair when you were sick.
Or if you were a flapper.
Yeah. But yeah, around that time,
that was scandalous.
Yeah, they're like, oh my gosh, they're cutting their hair to look like men, and they're
wearing skirts short enough that you almost see their knees.
Scandalous. Yeah, I mean, all these first wave feminists were just flabbergasted that women were going out in bars and drinking with men. Oh my gosh! And and they don't talk about this, how they spoke with such disdain for the new woman. Yep. The new woman that birthed second wave feminism. So when people are trying to talk about the women that that were for women's suffrage, and they try to compare that to like second, and then add in second wave feminism and then third wave feminism, there's no comparison. You simply cannot compare the two. One was a group of rich white women that really didn't give a shit about the suffrage of black women, and
poor
women, or any of that stuff. And they were often very conservative and religious by our modern standards. And the second wave feminists came out of this whole idea of the new woman, that she could go out and be employed, that she doesn't have to be married to have sex, that she can go out and drink with men as their equals and go out and dance and party and not give a fuck and not have any kind of responsibilities and not have to answer to anyone. That's what...
See, that's what feminism is. It's seeing only one side of other people's experiences. That is why that when we talked about what is that perspective thing we talked about last week? I can't
Standpoint theory.
Yeah, standpoint theory. The idea that they understand men because they think they're oppressed. And what they see there is they see all of the things that they would like to be able to do, that men do, but they don't see any of the things that men are required to do, or anything that is demanded of men. And so they emulate the things that they think men get to do without any care in the world for the things that are supposed to go along with them, the requirements that are supposed to go along with them. And obviously, if anything shows what level of bullshit standpoint theory is, it's the fact that feminists only understand a small percentage of what masculinity means to a man.
Yeah.
You know, that, he can go out, he might be able to go out drinking, but he's also responsible for his entire family. If he goes out for a beer after work, it's because maybe he needs to wind down after a full day on his job, making sure that his mortgage is paid and his family has their utilities paid and everything. And the idea that they could have half of that role and not the other half is completely ludicrous unless you're a feminist, and then it seems perfectly reasonable.
And the weird thing about all this is that the first wave, the suffragettes actually created the flappers through the temperance movement, to ban alcohol. They created these women who just didn't give a fuck, and then went off and drank with men, with illegal alcohol and all that stuff.
And the speakeasies, yeah.
Yeah, they
Nobody ever really
unintentionally
articulated.
Yeah, they unintentionally
implications of the temperance movement. Women created women created organized crime in the United States.
Yeah.
For the most part, there was organized crime before that, but it wasn't like the mafia, and it wasn't like what you see in today's temperance either, with the organized drug crime. That's a whole new level of organized crime. Probably never would have happened if there hadn't been a black market for alcohol, and if there hadn't become a black market for drugs. Women-female hysteria created the worst organized crime the United States has ever seen.
Yeah, and a lot of it was hysteria. The feminists these days, right? Oh, well, if it weren't for feminists, right, men would be allowed to beat their wives, right? But what did the Women's Christian Temperance Union used to do? They used to go around from town to town and put on plays demonstrating that when men drink, they turn into horrible wife-battering bastards, right? That's how they convinced the population, the public in the United States that prohibition would be a good idea, was because liquor made men beat their wives. So if it was socially acceptable and totally legal for men to beat their wives, right, before the 60s happened and feminists came along to enlighten us all, right, then the response to those plays would have been, meh, so what else is new?
Well,
right? Oh, that reminds me, my wife was late for her 4 o'clock beating.
Oh, gosh.
It used to be common, if a man was convicted of beating his wife in the United States, judges started actually applying the whip. They actually had a constable or the jailer, whatever type of community they were in, somebody would actually whip the guy.
Oh, a lot of judges would give the woman the choice. Do you want to do it, or do you want to have the constable do it? And, because, hey, he can whip your husband harder, but, you might prioritize the satisfaction of doing it yourself.
So, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some women who didn't
that I did not know.
Yeah, that was from the 1600s to the 1800s, right? And then mid to late 1800s, most states banned the whipping post, which was only a punishment for boys and men, mind you. Just like in Singapore, caning is only a punishment for men, right? Not for women. Women are exempt. But
the Unknown History of Misandry has some old news stories about this, and including one where it was discussed that they were wanting to get rid of the whipping post specifically because if men were being penalized that severely, women would not report.
Yeah. So again, it's basically we're going to get rid of the whipping post for the benefit of women, right? And
not for the benefit of the men.
Yeah, and then Theodore Roosevelt tried to bring it back in 1904.
Yeah.
Right? Specifically as a punishment for beating your wife. That was the only crime that he considered worthy of public lashing.
He did a lot of stuff. He also went and I think he tried to ban taverns in New York City. Totally failed. He basically tried to get rid of taverns and prostitutes when he was the chief of police in New York City. I think it was probably a higher position. I can't remember the exact, but it was high up, and he basically tried to go in there and clean up the town. Totally failed.
Yeah,
totally failed. One of the only times he ever failed to do anything that he wanted to do.
Well, I mean,
And
you look at it, and so much of it was chivalrous. So much of it was like, we need to make this a safe place for women. We need to make sure men aren't drunkards because then they'll pay their rent and keep roofs over their families' heads and all of these things, right? I mean, the entire rationale behind the whipping post was that if he was fined or jailed, she would lose either a portion of his income while he was in jail, or she would also lose the benefit of the property that he had to hand over, the $1,000 or whatever, because the fines, even at that time,
they were really steep,
high, right? They were really steep. She would suffer along with him, but if you strapped him to a post and gave him 30 lashes, he could still go to work the next day, right?
Yeah. Well, time to jump into the stupid, you guys. Strap yourselves in. Okay. As FemRAs, we've been called every name under the sun. It's funny how a group of women claiming to fight for women has very few problems attacking people with different opinions. But every now and then, we see comments that are so stupid that it gives you a headache. So without further ado, here's a bit of the stupid. Quote, I need feminism because men can still rape even without laying a hand on a woman.
Yeah, that's...
Oh.
Well, I suppose, there is those, like I've
I
said...
rape.
Well, no, I've said basically if you're in, like, the Congo or someplace like that, and some militants burst into your house and they point a gun at you and your brother and force you to have sex, you've both been raped, right? And neither of you is a rapist. The person with the gun is the rapist. So I suppose certain very strange situations, but I don't think
that's what she meant.
No, I don't think so.
No more power than what a woman has with a gun in her hand.
Exactly.
This one's my favorite. Coming up. Referring to women as, quote, females is degrading, dehumanizing, and cis-sexist.
You know what's stupid about that is that, I'll say females and males so that I can avoid writing men and boys and women and girls.
Yeah,
right.
I do the same thing.
Yeah,
there's males and there's females. Like, it's not dehumanizing. Like, how is that dehumanizing?
I don't know.
I don't
know. The question is, how is female any more or less a social construct than woman?
Yeah.
It's obvious that that's what they're going for is enforcement of the social construct idea.
Yeah. That's weird. But, okay. I need feminism because it isn't random how many more boys there are in my science classes.
No, it isn't random. It's actually down to the choices of individuals, which generally aren't random and are generally influenced by their brain wiring and hormone levels in utero and throughout their lives and all kinds of other things, preferences, talents, all of those. Oddly enough,
well, this was a high. Oh, here, okay. To clarify this was on a sign held up by what looked to be a high school girl.
Oh.
So, or a grade, or at least a girl in the school where
Well,
you
unless it's a freshman level science class, you still get a choice what you're going to take.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something has changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
How is feminism... my question is, how is feminism going to make girls more interested in science?
It's not. It's just going to make them feel obligated to pretend that they are.
And make them feel guilty for not going into it.
Now, I'll be honest, I liked it. I went through school, I took biology, chemistry, and I took physics, and those were all elective classes at my high school. Well, if you took earth science your freshman year, you didn't have to take another science. And I liked those classes and my math classes the best. But it doesn't necessarily pan out that all the other girls in my class were like that, or that all the other girls in my school were like that, or that they should have to be. About 25% of my community's students would go on to college right away after they got out of school. Some of them went back later, but a lot of girls would get married within the next couple of years after they got out of school. And they lived perfectly happy lives, and their kids were happy, and then, they lived long lives, and there was nothing about their lives that was, you would look at them and say, gosh, they didn't have anything that they wanted. They'd go through, and everything they wanted in life they could achieve.
All right, you stop talking about those disgusting whores of the patriarchy, right?
Oh, good.
Now.
Yeah.
Feminism isn't trying to figure out ways to help women. It's trying to figure out ways to dictate what women should want.
Oh my God! I took all the sciences in grade 12 and math and calculus. Didn't do that well in calculus. I think mainly because my teacher wasn't very interested in explaining concepts, just in showing you the steps.
I'm a great teacher.
But I took all of those. I took everything at the what they call the 300 level or the grade 12 level, the matriculation, and going on to university, and didn't want to go. And my parents talked me into it twice, and I dropped out twice in the first semester, both times. And they tried to make me go a third time, and I said, "Don't you think I've wasted enough of your and the taxpayers' money at this point, right? Like, because I'm not interested. I'm just not."
Yeah.
But, and I wanted to have my kids young. It's not so much the baby at age 35, it's the teenager at age 50 that I didn't want.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, and worked through most of my marriage, and had a job, and had my interests, and wrote some books, and got them published, and here I am doing this now, and it's not like I feel like I regretted not going into a STEM field. I mean, oh my God, the times that I've had to
regret that.
proofread my boyfriend.
Let me explain.
My boyfriend
I can explain, though.
Oh,
go on.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
but
my boyfriend's an engineer, and I've had to proofread some of his publications and stuff like that. And you know what? You couldn't pay me enough to do that for a living.
Well, actually, I've always been a pretty good researcher, and I actually originally wanted to be a marine biologist instead of going into graphic design. Originally, I had been on the path throughout my educational career to be towards like marine biology or biology, zoology, that sort of thing. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be some kind of scientist at least, because that's what I was interested in, and that's what I was good at. But what happened is that right about year 1 or 2 of high school, I started battling severe depression, and my grades all fell. And it fell all out from under me, and there wasn't really much I could do to catch up. But, shit happens.
Yeah, and that kind of makes it hard to get funding for college.
Yeah, once your grades fall, you can't really explain to people why you missed a year out of high school. When you're off in like going out throughout the foster care system and the mental hospital, you can't explain that to people, because first they're going to think you're crazy, and second off, they
don't really know what you go through.
No, it's really hard to keep up your grades if they're moving you around, or if you're in a really bad place, like you're living in a mental hospital for a long period of time.
Yeah.
It can be so bad that you just don't want to do any of your work.
Yeah.
So
well, and honestly, a lot of what gets assigned in American schools is busy work. Just busy work.
Oh,
it's
God,
not intellectually stimulating. It's not intellectually challenging. And I'm not being snotty. I mean, they're assigning you stuff at the high school level that you already did in junior high. and that you already learned how to do in elementary school. And it's just the same stuff. It's one of the reasons why I ended up taking the college prep classes. And it's, honestly, I think that kills students' motivation more than it helps the students memorize those things. Mm-hmm. And it's, the whole school system, the whole system that we have for education in the United States is just totally screwed. And the way they're emphasizing stupid little things and throwing busy work at the students and politicizing everything. Your reading lesson has environmentalism in it, and it's not responsible environmentalism, it's religious environmentalism, and your history lesson isn't told with all of the facts, it's told from a perspective, so you don't actually get everything, and you have to look it all up yourself. And there's things about
exactly.
And world history that I learned that from researching it myself because I could not get that information at school. And American schools are basically just a clusterfuck. They don't prepare the students to go on to a post-secondary education that's going to prepare them for a job. And it's become a real web of uselessness. Just a web of uselessness. And, a lot of that has to do with feminism. A lot of that is related to the feminist influence on the teacher unions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here we go. Next one. It's bad. It's really bad, you guys. This is a chick on Tumblr, so it's going to be good.
Oh, do we have to?
Yeah. We need to be if I was pregnant and I found out that it was a boy, I'd abort it before it even gets the chance to rape someone. No way that I'm putting a disgusting male on the planet. Yuck.
Well, the last time I was raped by a fetus, I just could not recover. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Most traumatic rape ever.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. God, those fetuses are just so brutal.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, that's real. I never met a person.
Oh, I really hope I never meet any of these people in person. I know that Sage said he met at least one Tumblr feminist, and that they were exactly how he had seen them be online. But, here's another one.
Birth rape is a thing. This is true. I've read about this before. Birth rape is a thing. There are forums dedicated to discussing birth rape. Now, they're not talking about the fetus. They're talking about the medical staff. And the medical staff doing things that the birthing mother is not prepared to accept. Like,
wow.
According to these birth rape forums and their standards, I was apparently birth raped by the nurse who, when I was in labor with my son, reached in and removed and replaced the monitor, the heart monitor that they have on a baby's scalp to make sure that he's not going into distress a couple of times before finally turning off the monitor. Which when my mother called the doctor about this, I had a slightly traumatic birth there, and I remember the doctor coming into the room and he goes over to the monitor and then he looks around and there's this booming voice throughout the room, "Who turned off this monitor?" And then everything happened really fast after that. But apparently the act, because what she did was not part of the birth plan, and it was actually detrimental. She was taking away my ability to know that my baby was in distress, and we both of us almost died because of it. Apparently that is classified not as malpractice, but rape. So everything really is rape.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. Honestly, having had 3 kids, there ain't really anything dignified about it.
No.
It's not romantic. It's not dignified, and you kind of lose track of the number of people whose hands have gone up your junk.
Yes.
Usually you're in too much pain to care, right?
Yeah.
But it's, you're supposed to just kind of deal with it. right? You know, like
women have always done.
You know,
my
and
son is so
doctors,
scared.
the doctors who are
Hold up
doing
the
that, the
rib
nurses who are doing that, right? They're doing it for a reason, right? To make sure you have a healthy baby and neither of you dies in the process.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like,
and what I ended up with was an inept newbie. I had to have a noob of all those situations. And so she just thought I was having an itty bitty little baby. And because she thought what she could see was the entire head and not just what you can see through all the goo. And yeah.
Goo. I mean, giving birth, very gooey. There's nothing dignified about that.
No,
the men are going to be so happy to hear about all this.
Honest to God, it could not be less dignified if they had a couple of sportscasters in there giving a play-by-play over the radio.
Yeah,
and it's no big deal. You just do it because and this is like, how many billion people are there in the world today? So childbirth has happened that many billion times just in their lifetimes. And the idea that such a thing exists as birth rape, and then not describing somebody climbing on top of someone in labor and fucking her when she's trying to give birth, which would be really difficult, awkward, is ludicrous.
Yeah, that ain't right. But again, I don't think that's what they're talking about. I mean, like, honestly, there's nothing really pleasant about anything about it until the moment it's done. Then everything's wonderful. You know, so I just don't understand this expectation that so many women have these days, that it's going to be romantic and it's going to be calm and it's going to be relaxing and it's going to be soothing, and it's going to be loving, and it's going to be chances are, not always, but chances are you're going to be screaming, you know, get this child out of me, you know, and do it now because I'm going to stab somebody. The cart's right within my reach, you know, and then
she'll do it too.
Just FYI,
I definitely believe Karen would totally.
Anybody, never give birth on something that you're not prepared to throw in the trash afterwards.
Yes.
Because it ain't pleasant. And so, I mean, like, I just don't understand how a word like rape would even apply there.
Yeah.
No, I feel like I'm being reminded of switch rape. Did you guys ever hear about that? There was a feminist who was describing how a man suddenly switched positions and she didn't approve. And she's like, oh my gosh, I've been switch raped.
Oh,
guys.
Maybe
now I'm a rapist.
Maybe if it's like, okay, they were going at it the old-fashioned way, and then surprise anal, but
well, that would be upsetting, but I don't think I quite would call it rape.
I don't know. I know there's some women who are like absolutely revolted by even the idea of that, and they're like, that's never going to happen, and I feel very, very sorry for their long-term partners, but
I feel sorry for them.
But
if they've said no and he does it anyway, well, yeah, then that's obviously rape. You know, and then same is true the other way around.
It's never going to happen.
I don't want to do that.
Ever, right? And then he just springs it on her. I could see that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, like the whole idea of sex is that, you know, like you try new things and you switch it up a little bit, and that's what makes it fun and that's what makes it enjoyable. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but again, I would have a hard time calling that rape.
All right, next one. This is from YouTube, the YouTube comments, if I recall. Quote: "Women's jobs are just as dangerous, if not more so, than men's jobs. Do you know about the chemicals that nurses have to breathe in every day at hospitals?"
Oh, yeah, you know, I'm always worried that I'm going to fall off of the retail sales floor into the cold, cold water of the ocean. Oh, wait, no, I'm not.
You know, oh my goodness, it's almost like they're actually worse than the chemicals that my dad breathed as a heavy-duty mechanic working for a company that hauled toxic waste and sewage and delivered porta potties and had to clean them out and all of that. You know, and there he is. He's in a shop. He's replacing brake pads. There's asbestos everywhere, right? There's all kinds of harmful chemicals, right? There's all kinds of shit that they're
yeah.
pumping into and out of these trucks, right? But oh my goodness, like some nitrous oxide? What?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Oh, I gotta speed it up.
Okay,
Women
and
were okay.
those
Okay.
nurses handle
Yeah.
chemicals that no doctor has ever touched.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And only
Yeah.
women are nurses, are doctors, and no men are nurses.
Where are the female coal miners? Is my question. And
And of
oh
course,
god,
They're working in the office.
and trash collectors.
wheel the
And-
bodies down to the morgue. The men are never asked to wheel the bodies down to the morgue. I have an ex-boyfriend who had to do that. And the morgue at the hospital where he worked was, the hallway was dark. The lights were spaced very far apart, so there were really dark spaces in between. So you're wheeling a dead body on a cart that has a squeaky wheel down a long,
creepy hallway.
creepy hallway. To get an understanding of this was an ER death. So you have in an ER, if somebody dies in the ER, they've generally speaking they've done CPR on the person, and this has happened to him. This had happened to him more than once. He'd get down to the actual doors of the morgue and he'd get inside, and all of the air that was beaten into the body during, because CPR isn't like it looks like on TV.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
extremely rough on the body. Ribs break. Hearts get damaged if it's not done properly, and
And the
so
corpse moans.
the corpse goes,
Oh,
oh.
oh, jeez, man. Oh,
It takes 2 steps to get that 60 yards back to the.
oh, God.
The meanest thing is in a hospital setting like that, the house.
Oh,
techs,
this one
they
is
to each other. So if one of them's down there and he hears the elevator come down, he'll wait and climb under one of the sheets or something, and when the next one comes in, grab him.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
This is a good one, though. Yeah, this is a good one, though. Women were denied access to college, and that's just as bad as being killed in combat.
One of the interesting things that I don't think a lot of people know is that in the United States in the 1920s, there were just as many women in college as men.
Being
And
denied
men-
college is just as bad as being killed in combat?
Well, and men overtook women in college. Okay, here's the thing. Because they returned from the Second World War with GI loans.
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden they could
Yeah.
afford to go to college.
Yeah.
Right? And so men, because they were the ones who had been called to serve and often drafted, and they came home with money that they could use for college, suddenly outnumbered women in college. Right?
Being denied college is just as bad as being killed in combat, according to this.
Oh,
thing.
yeah, of course.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry, but what experience with being killed in combat does she have?
Well, but those guys...
How many times has she been killed in combat?
But if those guys with the GI loans had just died in combat, then women would have been able to go to college.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying
so that would all even out, see?
They make such comparisons or such accusations. Men shouldn't talk about rape because they don't know what it's like to be raped, because they assume that men can't be raped. Or if you haven't been raped, you don't have the authority to talk about how bad rape is and all this other stuff. And then they turn around and say this or that is just as bad as being killed in combat.
I know.
And people wonder why women are against feminism.
The concept of how combat deaths happen.
Well, I think that actually maybe we could convince some of those ladies to actually go and give it a try. Would that be okay?
Use that incendiary device.
I don't know.
Explosive device there, and we'll catch you when you come back.
Yeah.
No, seriously, we'll catch you. You'll be flying through the air. That blows my. There's many stupid things that feminists have said that I've just shaken my head over, but that blows my mind. The same
that one
who articulate you don't have the right to talk about this because you haven't experienced it and therefore you don't know what it's like. Compared something to what it's like to be killed in combat when they are obviously still alive.
You know what as well.
They've never been in combat.
You know what? I'm willing to hazard a guess that she doesn't know what it's like to not attend college either.
Probably.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Oh, this is one of my personal favorites right here. Patriarchy has a hold on the term feminism. It has a pervasive effect like that, turning people against it. It'd be like saying, oh my gosh, you guys, the devil is trying to turn you against Christianity. Because neither of them exist. But then that's just my opinion. But anyway, they're like, the patriarchy is turning people against feminism, you guys.
Yeah.
A patriarchy which doesn't fucking exist in the first world.
Seems to be like an extreme deficit of self-examination going on here.
Yeah. They're like, guys, you don't know the meaning of feminism. You don't, like, you guys simply don't know what feminism is fighting for, you guys.
The patriarchy is lying to you, just the way Satan lied about he planted the fossil record, right, to weaken people's belief in God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
James said something in chat. I gotta agree. This would not be complete without a couple of quotes from the Agent Orange files.
Oh gosh. Oh Lord,
so
here we go.
I have opened up the article on A Voice for Men is called Radfem Hub, Underbelly of a Hate Movement, and I'll just drop the link into chat here while I'm at it. And I lost the tab. What an idiot I am.
While I'm waiting on that.
No, here it is.
Okay, here you go.
Let's see. Thanks for the supportive comments, sisters. I honestly have been reassessing the fact that I am giving care to these little future rapists, and what that says about me and my separatism. I know it is kind of going against my principles to support and care for these little fuckers. The women I most feel sorry for are their mothers. The way these boys treat their mothers is really shocking. All the while the mothers are trying to be perfect and loving and all that shit. If these kids were mine, there would be hell to pay. The worst of it is that about 6 months ago, Mr. Rape Threat was holed up in the corner with this same girl, Harassment victim, just labeling the children. And another 2 children were trying to pressure her into kissing Mr. Rape Threat, because, kissing makes you a rape threat. I brought this up at a staff meeting and said that we need to protect Harassment victim from Mr. Rape Threat. I was told in no uncertain terms that Harassment victim was sexually precocious and liked to draw attention to it herself, and it was her fault that this was happening to her. She goes on to call it fucked up shit. To talk about girls
flexing their sexual muscles.
As flexing their sexual muscles. Like, girls just never do that. That's one of them, and she is a child care worker, but going on to
special ed worker or something like that.
Oh, these people are among us.
This one here is a community development coordinator. Next time I hear the "what about the men" question, I will suggest that men will have a national day where they can have opportunities to be raped and battered, where they can stay at home and cook and clean, work in low-paid jobs, and be purchased from brothels. And then that's
every woman's experience right there. I know it's...
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing when I get up in the morning. I have to be raped before I go to the brothel. And
where you get raped some more.
And then you have to make some sandwiches.
The special ed teacher is this one. Here's the special ed teacher. We have 9-year-old male child to female child of the same age. If you don't love me back and be my girlfriend, I'll just rape you. And she says, sigh, my gut reaction to this was to mentally pick him up and throw him out the window without bothering to open it first. Not, to find out why the child is saying this and what exactly is wrong, or if maybe he's just being flippant and joking around and being stupid and needs to learn that it's not appropriate to say that to a girl. Yeah, if he doesn't
These
know
are mentally handicapped kids.
If he hangs out with teenagers that use that word to describe everything you do in a video game, and here we have this special ed teacher. Oh, I just want to throw him out the window.
Yeah, let's throw the mentally handicapped out windows, because that's
But the
that's
gym
always
is,
a good decision.
Yeah, this is
jeez, people.
Well,
These people are terrible.
This is
Writer,
descended
publisher,
from
and
stupid to something that is outside the realm. Well, it's still in the realm of stupid, but it's beyond stupid. It's more than stupid. It's worse than stupid.
This one is not stupid so much as insane. I like it a lot. I'm going to try to read this. What is this? What the hell? I like it a lot. Why do they have to have all these fluffy names? Luck Yankee? I agree basically with your analysis.
Oh my gosh! That's
Although I have a different emphasis so far in the evolutionary biology stuff I'm looking at. You're more radical than I at the moment, though who knows where I'll be in a year, but your proposal to exterminate the male entirely a la Solanus is to me a bit of a last resort. Not outrageous, not, holy shit, why would you even say that? No, it's just, this is a bit of a last resort. I would like to hear more about your thoughts on this as they develop. And she goes on to, where was it here?
oh god.
Yeah, she goes on to say, I'm trying to remember a book who did a novel about a woman geneticist, I think it was, who discovers that men are going to die off a lot faster than we're hearing. It's a Y chromosome thing, but I haven't read it yet, just reviews. The novel is about the hostility and rage she engenders, etc. Anyway, to prepare herself, she worked intensively with a woman geneticist, so the book came off authoritative in many ways. Like, I assume you object that lowering testosterone levels would not necessarily end the oppression. So they've actually been talking about surreptitiously drugging men to lower their testosterone levels. So we have this stupid at one end. At the other end, we have why feminists get compared to Hitler.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, these women, they're going on the same ideology. I mean, it's the same basic thing. Women are oppressed, men are oppressors, right? They're not. Their core beliefs of how the world works, right, are really no different from Jessica Valenti's or any of these other feminists who talk about oppression and privilege and patriarchy and all of these things, right? It's just that they are a little bit more extreme in, how entrenched they feel the problem is, and how, therefore, it being as entrenched as it is, what kind of measures would be required to eliminate the problem, right? And some of those ideas have been, killing off male babies at birth, and de-testosteronifying the guys through tainting the water supply or something like that, right? Which is frankly already happening kind of by accident with phthalates and other chemicals that are all around us, and plant estrogens and environmental estrogens and stuff like that, right? So maybe we're not waiting too long for that to just happen by accident. What a happy accident for those ladies. But and just exterminating them and that whole bit, like they're tossing around these ideas because hey, trying to make change within the system hasn't worked so far. Right? Yeah. Because we're just as oppressed. We're just as oppressed, if not more oppressed than ever, as women.
Oh gosh.
Right? And it is hilarious how they so often pick these totally creepily happy names like Cherry Blossom Life, right?
Yeah.
And Cherry Blossom Life used to blog, and she wrote a blog post about how her husband, who supports her, she does not have a job, right? And she says that she would divorce him in a second if she could only survive without his income. How's that for seeing him as human, right?
Oh, that's hypocrisy right there.
And he helps her out with the kids, and he helps her out around the house. Here's how she interprets that. That's just him like a wolf or a dog, pissing on what he owns, right? That when he helps with the kids and when he helps with the house, he's just asserting his ownership of that, right? Asserting himself as a top dog, not helping her out or anything. You know,
But they have a
not
happy marriage.
wanting to be involved with his kids or wanting to take a little bit of the load off of his wife because she's too busy blogging all day to do the dishes, right? About him pissing all over their house, metaphorically, right? Like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy, does he have any idea what his wife gets up to online while he's at work?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Well, since we've only got a couple minutes left, I'm going to at least read one last one, and this is incredibly relevant because this is from Katie Natopoulos on her Twitter. If a man posts nudes, he's exempt from unfollow a man. It's a signal like the lamb's blood over the doorway in Pharaoh's Egypt.
Was that tits or get the fuck out?
Yeah, basically! It's like the male version of tits or get the fuck out.
Alrighty then.
Alright.
Oh,
I don't feel objectified at all.
So now I'm really scared to look at that thread because most of the feminist men that I've seen online might actually do something like that when they didn't want to.
Everybody will just borrow
and
dick pics of Hugo and put them up in their place.
I think actually
it would be
Embrace-
involuntary nudity, and I would be an eye rapist. I could completely
Embrace
lose
just go and
all
scoop
of
a
my
bunch of
muscle.
random dick pics off of porn sites and flood her Twitter feed with random dick pics.
Oh, gosh.
Actually,
Okay,
I
maybe that's
got when I
not such a good idea, but I think it would be funny.
No, she probably like that.
How many before?
That's what she wants us to do, though. That's what she wants us to do, though. She's very obviously trying to troll people.
She'll get 4 of them, and then she'll be like, "I'm being harassed by men sending me dick pics."
No, wait, she
Yeah,
just said nudes, right? She didn't say nude men or nudes of themselves or anything like that.
Yeah.
Start sending her images of classic artwork that's in the Wikipedia pictures. You know, the
Michelangelo's David.
Public images.
Yeah, maybe send her a nice a traditional Renaissance Venus. Because there are several different kinds. Some of them are a reclining Venus.
There we go.
Or the Grand Odalisque, which is more like that's more of a later sort of anyway, late Renaissance kind of deal.
Be totally perfect.
The Grand Odalisque. It's fantastic. Yeah, we're
sports. Come on, guys.
Yeah, come on.
It's just they're gonna get pissed at us if we say things like that. They're gonna be like, "Oh man, you see these guys? They're just trying to instigate trolling against this poor, innocent woman who's calling for the objectification of men to prevent themselves from being unfollowed on principle alone, on the sheer virtue of being a man."
Yes. Because it's so fabulous that being unfollowed would be worse than being killed in combat.
Oh no!
I know, but only if you're a woman.
Yes.
So.
It's like lamb's blood on the door, you guys. Just, I guess a bunch of men right now are just suddenly shoving like pictures of dicks onto their Twitter. Just.
One can hope.
This is my dick right here, as far as you know.
Everybody post pictures of Richard Nixon. There's your dick pics.
Just start. Oh, jeez, yeah.
Post that one where he's got his hands up and the 2 fingers. And
post pictures of Robin, though, Dick Grayson. Or Nightwing. Yeah, there we go. There's your dick pics.
Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy, yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're winding down. I want to thank I want to thank everybody who's been listening in and keeping up with us, and who didn't wait for this to get up on YouTube before they decided to listen. You know,
all I gotta say is, after being out in the sun all afternoon, scraping a fence, getting sunstroke, and then coming here, I think I might be permanently brain damaged.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Karen. But you know, we've got to go out there and face the stupid, or no one else is gonna.
I agree.
We do this for a reason.
Oh,
But,
it was worse than getting killed in combat, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to thank Hannah and Karen and everybody else who's listening in,
And James.
yeah, and do remember that this will be available for download after the show.
Oh, and also thank you, Men's Rights Reddit, for the sticky.
Yes, absolutely.
Always sticky.
Always.
Sticky
And we want to thank anybody who's been contributing on Patreon. We have a Patreon page these days. Look us up. And I guess there we go.
There's nobody to yell Carl, so...
Oh, one more thing.
Carl!
One more thing, and I know I've harped on this a couple times, but the Kennesaw University fundraiser is still up and running, and it's still in need.
Go donate.
Yes,
Yeah.
go donate. It's on fundanything.com.
Yeah.
Campaign is called Male Students in Peril. It's male-students-in-peril, and I'll drop it in chat. But for those who are listening who are not in chat, it's fundanything.com/en/campaigns/male-students-in-peril.
Yeah, and do know that I think people will be able to actually go to this who may not be students on the campus. So the people who are further down south, nearer to Georgia, would then have access to be able to hear the different speakers like Janice Fiamengo, and I'm trying to remember everybody.
As far as I know.
Karen's gonna be there.
Karen's gonna be there. You know, if this gets funded, you know, a bunch of people, you know, some of your favorite MRAs are gonna be there. I know I will try to be there. You know, the Badgers want to have a presence there if we can to support our favorite Ginger. But yeah, it greatly needs your help and assistance. If you have the funds, please do contribute. He does so much for us. He works on the website, you know, does a lot of activism. So if you can give back, please do.
And also, this is a chance to establish a presence on campus, which is a men's center on campus as a presence on campus, which is really an important thing.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night, everybody. Same Badger time, same Badger channel next week. No, yeah. Good night and good luck.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio, radio with